Your potential client has now accepted the proposal and it's time to lock the project down with a contract. So in this tutorial, we'll be setting up this contract on Wized, and the setup is almost identical to the last video. Now, before we get on to the build side of things, let's quickly demo this out. All right, so we have the contract here, and of course, the entire content of this is completely static. You would set this up on Webflow, and when you scroll down, the client, likes the look of it. They're about to sign this off, and actually I forgot the name. Let me just double check. All right, so Ron Swanson. Okay. And let's sign this off. Perfect. Now you're greeted with this success banner here, and you should see another one over here as well. You'll find Ron's signature has been applied and all our buttons have been hidden away. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing on this tutorial. Okay, so with that being said, let's jump over onto Webflow. Okay, and walk you through the structure. So first things first, on the navigator panel, you'll notice just like the last video, we also have a component here called Airtable Record ID. And once you click on it, you'll notice that on the settings panel, we have the element ID, the Wized attribute name, and the Airtable Record ID. So for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to assign a new record here. Okay, so we're going to delete this record. Actually, before we delete this off, let me copy this and delete this record and create a brand new one. So let's say that, let's pretend that you've just wrapped up on the contract. You've just finished up on drafting the contract, and you head over onto Airtable, you add in your new record. Let's assign this to Dreamland, and then, okay, and then this field here, client sign name. So ignore this. You don't need to fill this in. This field is connected to the client's signature. So the modal that the client signs their name in, that input is connected to this field here. So yeah. And then we have the PDF field here. Of course, once the contract has been signed off, you can, of course, take a screenshot of that contract and then upload that PDF over here. And then we have a checkbox of contract signed. So, of course, this is quite self-explanatory. The contract has been signed off, so it's going to be checked. And then we have the reveal sign button, which is set to true. It's true because, right, so this field here is connected to this wrapper. Click here to sign. So this button goes away if the contract has been signed off. So yeah, and if it's true, that means it's going to be visible. If it's false, then it's going to be hidden away. And then we have the field, the date field, which is the contract signed date. So this is automatically set by Airtable on the day when the client signs the contract. And this is the contract signed date pretty. So basically this is a formula field that grabs the value from this field and then makes it prettier. And we use that format in here. So if I go back here, so basically it puts that pretty date format over here. All right, so that's the Airtable side of things done. Now let's scan through the page. We then move on to the success banner here. I don't think I've attached any text Wized element to this. Yeah. So obviously then you would have to create your own message, or if you're happy with this text, you can just leave it as it is. And yeah, so, but we do have a Wized element to the banner here. So this banner shows up when the contract has been signed. And then scrolling down, we have this button here. Of course, we have the Wized element attached to it. And then these are quite straightforward stuff. And all right, so that's that for these stuff, because they're quite straightforward, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. Now over here, you'll notice that we have two signature fields. One is, of course, the client signature, and then another blank signature placeholder. So the reason why we have two is that when the when the contract hasn't been signed, we put this on display. And when the contract has been signed, we put this on display. So that's pretty much it. That's why we have two client signature placeholders. Another thing I wanted to point out is that when you're creating your contract, this area is completely static. So do make sure that you type in your name here and your email and the date that you have signed on. So if I were to submit the contract, let's say tomorrow, then I would probably put tomorrow date on here. And again, like I said, this is all static, so this is not connected to anything. So this has to be manually inputted. And yeah, that is pretty much it for the structure inside the contract. Now let's quickly head into the page settings to check out our, okay. All right, so if you look at the inside head tag, we've added in the same tag so that we don't want this page to be indexed by Google. And then we have our CSS styling. We also have a contract loader wrapper over here. So if I close this and show you the navigator here. All right, so over here we have a contract loader wrapper. We have that loader, so it's hidden here inside Webflow, but in the published page, it's actually, we've set that to flex. So that's essentially what that is. Okay, so scrolling down, we then have a script, which is the same exact script as we have on the proposal. So essentially, the contract record ID, so the Airtable record ID text element is grabbed, the value of it is grabbed, and then this, and then we set that as the URL parameter under this parameter name, contract record ID. And then, so Wized grabs that value and then looks it up on Airtable for that value, and then grabs all the content for that contract and then loads it up into the page. So that's essentially what this code is doing. Alrighty, and that is pretty much it. Okay, so let's save that. Oh, let me just double check if I have put in the record ID properly. So I'm going to copy this new one, and we're going to leave all of the, all the other fields as is. So we're not going to, okay, alrighty. And let's publish this. Perfect. It's now published. Now let's head over to Wized. Let me reload this page. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to create our data in request, and then we're going to create our data out request, and then we're going to move into our actions panel here. Okay, so what do we want to set up on the data in? So on page load, we want to make sure that we grab the Airtable record ID and then check if the contract has been signed or not, and then we reveal the contract. So we're going to call this load contract. With that being said, we need to create a folder first. Okay, now we do call this load contract and then put it into contract, set this up with Airtable, and then click database, get item. All right, so contract. Oh shoot, I forgot. So obviously we need to set up the parameter. So what we need to do is head over to page data, and then over here on navigation, we want to set this to contract record ID. So we need to set this parameter name, contract record ID. That's where our Airtable record ID is going, the value of it is going to be saved. So let's head back to data in. And for the record ID, we want to drop that in here. Okay, so let me just refresh this page. Well, before I do, okay, let's see if our code is working. So at the moment, you'll notice that the contract record ID is empty, but the moment I refresh the page, it should load up. All right, and there we go. It has loaded up. Perfect. Now, if we go into load contract, we want to set the trigger. Now the trigger is going to be set with client signature. Well, actually any element. I'm just going to select client signature because that's what I have on my notes. So for context, the client signature is this element right here. So essentially this element is the one that is going to trigger our data in request. Okay, now time to close this and create our data out request. So I'm going to create a new folder first for our data out. And we're going to call this data out request as sign contract. So we want to update the item, and let's set this up. Record ID is going to be from the parameter. Okay, so the only thing we need to fill in is the signature. Client sign name. Okay. All right, there you go. So the client sign name is the one that we need to fill out. So let's look it up. Okay. Wow, I can't seem to find the input. Oh, there we go, input fields. Okay, what are we looking for? We're looking for signature. Yes. Okay, so to confirm, and this is something I completely forgot to address. Okay, so if in Webflow, we have this modal, which is currently hidden. If you put this on, and I believe this is the element. Yeah. So we have this input, and we're calling this signature, and this signature is linked to this field here, client sign name. So Ron Swanson, you put this in, and that's it. So essentially, that's what we're doing on Wized right now. So we're filling this out. And then what else do we need to? Of course, contract signed needs to be checked as well. So contract signed needs to be set to true, and that is it. And then after that, what we want to do is we want to create an after request. So we're going to perform a request, and it's going to be conditional, and it is sign contract status code only when this data out request is successful, and only then we want to execute load contract. So it will reload the page. And that's it. Our data out is complete. Now let's get over to actions and start from the top. Okay, so instead of starting from the top, what we're gonna do is, because I'm following from my notes, we're gonna just kind of, freestyle this. All right. So the first element that we're going to be targeting is this button over here. So what we're going to call this is set visibility. Let's head over to Webflow and find out what this element is called. Signature modal trigger. Okay, so set visibility to signature modal trigger. We'll create the folder in a bit. Signature modal trigger. So what we're doing here is setting its visibility. So what we want to, so basically we're going to set its visibility based on the load contract. Oh, that's weird. The contract hasn't loaded up. Okay, right. I think I may need to refresh this. All right. Load contract. There we go. Our data has kicked in. Okay, so reveal sign button is true. There we go. Okay, So reveal sign button is true, so that's why the button should be true as well. Let's refresh this. Okay, it's working now. Awesome. Okay, so next on the list we have the success banner, or whatever you want to call it, or contract success banner. So we have this one and this one over here. So we're going to be setting its visibility as well. Again, let's see what they're called. Contract signed banner. Okay, so set visibility to contract signed banner, and apply that to contract signed banner. So we want to apply this to both. Banner 2, configuration, set visibility, and visible if. So the visibility for this is going to be dictated by this button here, reveal sign button is false. So if I go back to Airtable here, reveal sign button, whenever this is false, which means that this contract has been signed, only then it should show up. So that's what we're doing here. Let's refresh this, and there we go. Both the banners have been hidden. Perfect. Okay, so next on the list, we are going to be focusing on the blank empty placeholder. So let's switch over to Webflow and find out what this is called, client signature placeholder. Okay, client signature placeholder. So we're going to close this, create another action, set visibility to client Now, it's very important that you name your actions exactly the way you have named your elements. So in case if you're looking for something specific, you can just use the search bar and it will show up all the relevant actions related to that element. Set visibility to client signature placeholder. Wait, did I name this client signature placeholder? Yep, that's correct. Okay. Client signature placeholder. So we want to set the visibility, and that is okay. So this is only revealed when reveal sign button is true. So which means the contract hasn't been signed. That's why we're showing this. That is, yes, that is correct. So let's refresh that. Okay, yeah, it is there. All right. And now we target the client signature. So let's focus on this, client signature, okay. Let's close this, let's create another action, set visibility. Apply to client signature and set visibility, and over here what we want to do is sign button is set to false. So let's close this and refresh this. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so we are almost there. Okay, so now next on the list, we have sign contract. So let's create that, which is going to be our trigger. Sign contract and signature. Oh, submit. So on click, we're going to perform the request, which is sign contract, and close this. So just for context, sign contract is inside this modal here. Let me put this on. So if you, this button is basically sign contract trigger. So sorry, signature submit. This is the Wized element. So when you click on this, we send this input field value to Airtable and confirm that the contract has indeed been signed. And with that, we're gonna hide this, go back to Wized. All right, so our signed contract has been done. Let me reload this page. We're gonna try to place the client signature. So we're gonna call this set client signature text. So when the client has signed the contract, we want their name to be popping up. So we are going to apply that to the element called client signature, which is currently hidden right now because the contract hasn't been signed. So we're going to do this as set text HTML, well, actually plain text. And I don't know if we have the client sign name load contract. Okay, so the field that we're looking for is not available because it's blank. So that's why the request is not pulling that in. As you can see, it's blank right now. So what we're gonna do is, just for the sake of this, I'm just gonna call it John Doe, just so that we can see that come through on Wiz. So what I'm gonna do is close this, reload this page. Now this time it should work. We should be able to see that field come in. Load contract. Ah, there we go. Sign name. There we go. Okay. Also, the reason why you're not being able to see that is because obviously in Airtable, you need to check this off. And when this is checked, your client name should come into view. But we'll be getting to that in a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this away so that we can run our demo, we'll run our test in a bit. Okay. Now, next on the list, we have the contract sign date, which is this element over here. All right, so let's call it set signed on date. Yeah, let's call it signed. Actually, what are we calling it in Webflow? Let's find out. Contract signature date. All right, set contract set contract signature date text. Yeah, we'll just leave it. Makes it a lot easier. Contract signature date, and then we want to set the text, plain text, and I believe we might not be able to find the date. Contract sign date pretty, but what we can do, we can just wing it. So yeah, the date is not available, so we're gonna create this on the fly. I forgot, contract sign date pretty. Contract signed date pretty. Oh, right, it was there all along. Ah, shoot, I completely missed it. All right, well, okay, so that's set now. That is done. Now next on the list, we have our contract loader, which is this. So let's set that up. Set visibility for contract loader. All right. Contract loader, set visibility, visible if load contract is requesting. Well, that's it. That's all we want. Perfect. And now for the last bit, we need to select the entire contract wrapper and set the visibility based on the data in request. So what I mean by that is we need to select the main wrapper here, which would be the contract content wrapper, contract content. So contract content should only be visible when the data in request has been successful. So we're going to call this load contract. Actually, should we call it load contract? Yeah, we'll just call it load contract. Okay. Contract content. So we're going to set the visibility. Visible if load contract has requested and status code is 200. Has requested is true. So yeah, the request, so load contract request has requested true and status code is 200. And there we go. I believe that's it. So let's give it a test. All right, contract loaded up. We just need to sign it. Now, instead of, I'm gonna put a different name, Jane Doe. So confirm signature, loads up, and there we go. Okay, so the date has been signed in, the signature is in, contract success banner is in view, and over here as well. Perfect. And that brings up to the end of this tutorial. Hopefully this wasn't too hard. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And I will see you on the next one.